Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Gaming Mix podcast, episode 95. Of course, if you don't know me already, my name is Jordan, one of the co-owners of analogstickgaming.com. And to my right, as he most often is the founder himself, Jeff. How are you doing, Jeff?
Not too bad. It's been pretty hot over here, so I've been mostly taking Banter to the lake and letting him run around. And he is very good at swimming right now. He absolutely loves swimming. Actually, he was starting to like jump to the water and go through it fairly quickly. So he's been loving
Let's get
that.
him in
But
the Animal Olympics.
yeah, he's gonna join Team Canada on the swimming team.
But of course, we weren't here last week for an episode, but if you missed it, we did actually release some gameplay of a game that Jeff reviewed on the channel. We played in co-op, Jeff. What game was that?
That was the Mound Omen of Cthulhu, which is kind of like a Lovecraftian Lethal Company, pretty
Yes.
much.
Yeah, and I quite enjoyed it. It has some spooky vibes, it does some interesting things. I don't, I think nobody in the world's going to be out here telling you it's the best game ever made. But I would go and check out that gameplay if you haven't already. I'll try and put it somewhere up here in the video so that you can click on it because
Yeah,
it does some really fun things.
I was watching Burnt Peanut play that with a bunch of people and stuff, and he would have like the hatchet or whatever, and he'd walk up behind people and like throw it at their head, going "helmet check." It was so fun.
I
It,
love
it, it
Burnt
was
Peanut.
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, yeah, but no, the game is fun, but it lacks polish in certain areas, which obviously is a bit of a
Just
problem.
needs something added to the gameplay loop that makes each run kind of feel unique, because you are essentially just kind of doing the same thing run after run after run. And
Yes.
those games are built for kind of creating moments that make those things unique, like Lethal Company and all those types of games have those things where it is kind of the same experience every single time you're going through it. It's those moments you build along the way that kind of add variety, but it just needs a little bit more because the sum of its parts isn't really terribly great. Like the combat is not terribly fun. It's very janky, and there's just it just needs it needs something a little bit more to kind of create those moments. But I mean, it's not a bad game. It's really really fun. Like you can have a great deal of fun with that game, but
Yeah.
I think that the
Like I'll
friend
never
slot
forget,
genre
and
is just so
it's in
stacked
the
right now.
and it and it's in the gameplay as well. I believe, but it's or it might have even been the run that we did after we recorded. But there was a run where I'm trying to get back to the boat effectively. You're already there. I've got monsters chasing me. And then you're like, is that you behind the cart? And I'm like, yeah. And I come round, but you look like a monster. And I
I'm
look
like,
like a monster. So we start attacking each other.
yeah, like those moments are super fun.
Yeah.
It just needs, I don't know, kind of like it just needs a little bit more to really stand out, because like the friend slot
Yeah.
genre is like stacked right now with so many options. And then you've also got
Yeah.
Mystical Hunters, which is coming out right away, and that's going to be on Game Pass, so that's
Yeah.
going to be
I
huge
completely
soon.
agree.
So
Like there's so many options for, as you said, what we call the friend slot genre nowadays, which is essentially, for people who don't know, they're games that aren't necessarily the best games, but they're designed purely for having fun moments with your friends,
yeah, it's like
effectively.
Lethal Company. It's like Are We There Yet? Peak. Like it's those games that you normally, I mean, like even like Mecha Chameleon, it's those games that you look at on the Steam store, you see a screenshot, you're like, yeah, no. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, you find out it's the biggest freaking game out there, and you play with a bunch of friends, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's like I didn't play Peak until a few months ago, and Peak genuinely is one of my favorite experiences. Like it's really fun. It's really fun to play with friends and just try and climb up this crazy mountain. But But obviously, we've been away for a little bit. Like I said, we weren't here last week with an episode. That does mean we've got a few news pieces to speak about. However, this, I'm sure if you've seen a thumbnail, you will be aware that the majority of this episode will actually be focused on things we've been playing because both myself and Jeff have played Halo as well. I know Jeff hasn't finished it yet, and we are actually going to be playing. We can announce this right now. We're going to be playing the main campaign of Halo Campaign Evolved together, and we're going to put that out on the channel, probably mission by mission, something like that. We'll figure out the exact structure as we go, but yeah, we'll be putting that out in the coming weeks, I expect. But for now, Jeff, I think we, of course, have to have a word from our sponsors, and then we will get into the news.
Alrighty, let me bring it up. All right, so NordVPN, they have been really good to us in terms of like allowing us to try the VPN software, just to basically kind of browse internet that's not generally native to us. So right now, for example, SummerSlam is next weekend. And if you live in the United States, you have to watch it through ESPN. But if you don't want to watch it through ESPN and you have Netflix, that's exactly what this is kind of for. It lets you kind of browse the world's internet, find a Netflix that essentially has the WWE programming that you want, and then you can just watch it there. And the nice thing about it is sometimes the stream that you get on ESPN and Netflix are slightly different. There's been some interviews and promo packages that I've seen on the Netflix side that maybe doesn't show up on the ESPN side because they have commercials and other advertisements to kind of go through.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for a VPN, it's definitely worth investing in the best one, and that is hands down NordVPN. If you subscribe right now, you get 75% off plus 3 months extra, and you're looking at about $4.39 Canadian per month, which is, considering our dollar, it's pretty cheap on the US side of things. So you get the best and fastest VPN on the market, a stable and encrypted internet connection, and your all-in-one digital security app. You can also take a look at NordPass. If you are, not terribly great with passwords and you only need to remember one, you can then basically set up a password manager to get you through all your variety of apps from everywhere on your PC. Our last sponsor right now is one we're going to be getting very familiar with their new product. They've got some anniversary glasses that are going to be coming out, and we're going to be taking a look at those. But Vitcher is basically kind of all you need, really, when you are taking your gaming on the go. If you, like me, take your Nintendo Switch to work, or maybe if you commute, you can then take a big screen TV with you right on the glasses. And I tell you right now, that screen is better than my current TV and bigger than my current TV. Actually, they're fantastic. They are crystal clear. They barely weigh
Yeah.
anything. And the nice thing about them is if you have any type of vision problems, you can get prescription lenses made directly for the Vitcher Beast, or you can use the little dials that are going to be on the Pro Anniversary Edition, which will allow you to then customize the lens to your overall needs. These are absolutely fantastic products.
And what I want to say to people as well with these two sponsors, and myself and Jeff have always been clear about this on Analog Stick Gaming and here at the Gaming Mix, but if you're new, because obviously we're 95 episodes in, we don't just randomly endorse products or services. They are things that we've used ourselves, and if we're placing them with an affiliate link, obviously we'll be very clear about that to you. If you use our NordVPN link below and you keep your subscription past 30 days, we will receive some of the money from that subscription, okay? But we will only endorse things that we've actually used and value ourselves. We're not going to tell you something's good if we haven't tried it out for ourselves.
Yeah.
So, so I just want to be very clear about that to people. But now, Jeff, I think we should get into some gaming news because there's been a few interesting things that have happened while we're away. So, where do you want to start this week?
Well, we'll we'll start with some Xbox news since we were just talking about Halo.
Yes.
So Xbox backwards compatibility has launched on PC, and 4 Xbox original games are playable right now, and they will also be receiving achievements in the future. The rollout of the feature started today with 4 games for the original Xbox now available on Windows PC and handhelds, such as the ROG Xbox Ally. The 4 games available to play right now, as announced on the official Xbox Wire blog, are as follows, and that is Blinks the Time Sweeper, Conquer Live and Reloaded, Fusion Frenzy, and the absolutely fantastic Crimson Skies High Road to Revenge. Players can currently purchase any of these games on PC, with more games being planned to be added in the future. The titles are also included on all Xbox Game Pass tiers. New features have also been added to the title, including 4-time resolution scaling, VSync support, texture filtering, anti-aliasing, and more. Xbox has also confirmed that achievements will be added in the future, and since original Xbox games have never had achievements, this will be kind of new to those versions. Xbox plans to add them to both console and PC versions in the coming months. So this is kind of a neat thing because again, like backwards compatibility for Xbox isn't generally running the old game, it's running an emulated version of that older game. So
Yes.
the only thing that kind of stops them from getting games playable on PC or Xbox or anything through backwards compatibility is licensing, which is why some games have just never been able to be added to backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
um, and there's other factors for sure, but licensing
And
is
it's
easily
also
one of them.
why some games are actually supported by backwards compatibility, but they don't really market it because you can't purchase those games anymore. However, if you own the disc or something and you have an Xbox console, you can play them, right? Like there are a list of games that they don't even tell you are compatible that are actually compatible. What I think is most interesting about this is there, and obviously we don't know if this is changing going forward, but a lot of the rumors and reports are that the next Xbox piece of hardware, Helix, is effectively going to be a PC, right? And one of the biggest questions that people had was, okay, if your hardware is going to effectively be a PC, that's fine, but what about my backwards compatible library? And I think that this is the first step on that road to them showing like, no, we can do this. Because as you said, Jeff, rightfully so, the way they do their backwards compatibility is through emulation. They're not actually running the original
No,
game. Like
when
even
even
on the console, they're not
yeah,
running the original game.
even if you take like an actual physical disc and put it in the Xbox Series X, all that does is it triggers a download of that emulated ROM and places it on the desktop. That's basically all it does. It's not. It doesn't. It only uses the disc as an authenticator,
Yes.
which is essentially how digital games kind of work anyways, or even how software on physical disc works anyways, is this authenticator to trigger a download, and then that downloads. Sometimes the data is on the disk in that's in current, in certain games, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that obviously some people are going to say, "Oh yeah, but they've only started with 4 games here." And it's like, "Yeah, but they've also started with arguably 4 of the hardest games to do because these games are from the original Xbox hardware. Hence why they have no,
Yeah,
they've had no achievements, they've had things like that. So, for example, when it comes to them eventually allowing support for maybe there are some Xbox One titles that never released on PC, right?
mhm.
And they can now have those supported through backwards compatibility because let's be honest, uh, the limitation of backwards compatibility is always the hardware you're trying to run it on. But
See,
PCs but PCs for the most part are powerful enough to effectively emulate any other console.
Yeah, the one thing that I would love to see, like honestly, my biggest feature or biggest request for the next Xbox is one that I kind of had for this one that just never came to be. Um, is some type of like parsec type of system, especially with
Interesting. Okay.
these like get Fusion Frenzy, right? Like being able to play Fusion Frenzy like online with friends and all that kind of stuff could be super super fun. And I don't know if this version has any type of online functionality,
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a
but
good
but
that's a
but
good
having
question.
but having a built-in parsec, I think honestly could be something that Xbox could tout as a massive feature because again, like it's going to be essentially a working PC, so why not have something that Steam
Something
users
like
use
that,
like
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but on the backwards compatibility side of things, I think that this is another sign of why I support digital media, okay? Because this is one of the advantages of digital media is like, and this we've heard rumors, I don't know, we discussed it briefly before, but there is that report that Xbox is going to start up some sort of disc to digital
Mm,
service where you can digitize your disc games. If that Now that this emulation thing's happening on PC, I can understand why they're doing that. Because let's remember, their most popular generation, the Xbox 360 generation, for a lot of those games, they were never released digitally. But what if you could go to Xbox and be like, hey, I do actually own these games. Here's the way to authenticate it, and now I can access better versions of these games forever from my PC. You
mm,
know, like and we know that in terms of Xbox 360 emulation specifically, there are emulators for Xbox 360 games that you can get working on PC, but it's one of the hardest systems ever to emulate. But we know that Xbox can already do that. It's their system. They know how to do it. They know how to make it work. They
yeah.
do it already on the Xbox One and obviously on the Series as well now. Like, so I think it's very exciting for game preservation from the perspective of the wider audience, where yes, there are people out there that still have their original hardware and it's in full working order and things like that. But not everybody has that luxury, right? And for example, I own a lot of, and also that's another way of getting around the licensing issue. Because let's say that I own some of the old SmackDown versus Raw video games, right?
Hmm.
From the Xbox 360 generation. Why shouldn't I still be able to play them? You know,
Yeah.
why shouldn't they be? Because I own them and I still have the discs here. I just don't have a 360 to hand that can play them. Why shouldn't I still be able to play those titles in some way through emulation or otherwise? You know, and I think that this could be a step towards that, and in my opinion, that would be a really good thing. So, yeah, I'm happy with this news. I think is a good piece of news. But it's not the only news we've had in the last little while. So, what else do we have to talk about today, Jeff?
All right. So this one's frustrating. The Xbox Series X version of Avatar Legends, the fighting game, has been delayed just hours before it was set to release. The game, which is published by PM Studios and recently formed by Paramount Games and is developed by Gameplay Group International, was set to release today at 7 a.m. PT. Um, and let's see here. 7 a.m. PT, yada yada yada, on PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC, with Switch and Switch 2 versions coming in the future. An announcement posted on the game's official Twitter account just 13 hours before the planned release time, however, states that the Xbox version has been delayed by a month and a half. It also adds that the deluxe edition, which includes a year one pass, a digital soundtrack, and digital art book, won't be initially available on Switch when it eventually releases on that platform, and that it won't support crossplay or any languages other than English, at least at first. The official launch of Avatar Legends, the fighting game, is almost here, and we can't wait for players around the world to jump in and start playing, the statement reads. As we approach launch, we want to update our community on a few platform specific details. For Nintendo Switch players, the Nintendo Switch version will be available as the standard edition only. Additionally, crossplay with other platforms and language beyond English will not be available. We are committed to bringing these features, along with upgrading to the deluxe edition, to players as soon as possible, and will keep you updated on our timeline and progress. For the Xbox community, we are forced to delay the release. Due to unforeseen circumstances on a back end feature, we will now launch by September 3rd. Existing pre orders will remain active and will not be canceled. Our priority is delivering the best possible experience on every platform, and we are working tirelessly to make that happen. Thank you for your patience, understanding, and continued support. We're excited to get everyone into the fight as soon as possible, and tune in here for more updates as we have them. Now, we have they've had some um, comments on that various tweet, various other platforms that say delaying an anticipated game by a month and a half, less than 24 hours before releasing, is actually insane. Do better. What the F do you mean existing pre-orders will remain active and will not be canceled? Watch this ticket support go through. There's no reason to make such an announcement less than 24 hours till re-release. That's ridiculous. Then we've also had, let's see here, some other ones. All right, so this one says, F your game, replied one person. Delaying your game hours before release on Xbox is horrible management. Zero excuses. You should have known this well in advance. Keep your game, not buying it. Was looking forward to it so much after as being an Avatar fan.
So
Um,
I want to
why don't
cut
you do these
in
comments? No, that's fine.
on that.
That's pretty much the story there.
So what I find interesting about this piece and people's reaction to it, there's a few things to say, I think. Firstly, yes, I can understand the extreme disappointment of having a game pulled from release less than a day before, right? And kind of like, hey, we're going to delay it by a month and a half. That sucks. And yes, people are correct that, oh, when people say, oh, you should have known about this way before, I have been speculating since before the show, as we spoke about it, Jeff. I wouldn't be shocked if they did know about this probably 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, but they probably believed in themselves to get whatever the issue is sorted in time for the certification to fully be passed.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I imagine happened here, for people that don't know, Xbox have a really long certification process, okay, compared to other platforms. Like, Steam is effectively, we joke about this, but Steam is effectively, the certification process is, are you a real person? Okay, you can publish a game on this platform, right? PlayStation's is a little bit more involved than that, whereas Xbox is very, very strict of like things have to work a certain way, they have to prove to be worked. All these, like, I'm not going to bore people on it, I'm trying to simplify the situation. But what I'm saying is there's a reason that Xbox codes come in last, right? Because a lot of these games don't get passed till the very last minute. But what I could see, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm not from the studio, but what I could see happening is they put this game in for certification. It probably passed on pretty much everything, and then Microsoft slash Xbox has gone to them and said, we can't let you release the game until you fix this issue. And whatever this issue happens to be, they've probably been working on it for the last handful of weeks in the hope that they would be able to fix it and get it sorted before release date of the game, you know?
Hmm.
So yes, it sucks, but at the end of the day, they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have to, because this is a very unique situation. Like, this isn't them, oh, a day before the game comes out, getting paid money to yank it and have some exclusive period, right? This is
Yeah.
basically them saying there's been an issue during the certification process, which means we are not allowed to release on this platform at this current time, and therefore it's going to take them about a month and a half to fix it.
Yeah.
It's like that is what it is, and to be quite frank, you shouldn't be blaming the developers for this. You shouldn't be blaming the developers, you shouldn't be blaming the studio. Yes, you can be angry at them for maybe not being a little bit more upfront about the information. Like, when they knew that there was this issue with certification, they could have quite easily made some sort of public update and said, hey, there is an issue with certification on Xbox right now. We're hoping to still make release date, but there might be a chance that we have to delay the game, right? They
Mm.
could have said something to that effect. But my argument is, if anything, it's actually the Xbox platform and their certification process is what you should be angry at, because that's what's causing the issue here. Like, their certification process is too involved. It requires, it takes too long, and getting things recertified when you is the same reason patches for games often arrive after on Xbox, because you have to get the entire thing recertified. So it's like, you know, I saw some tweets the other week from a good friend of mine, John, over at Day One, used to be the Xbox era, where he talked about how there's not very many reviews for games on the Xbox platform. But as me and him have discussed, and Jeff will know this well, part of the reason for that is because Xbox code always comes in last, right, Jeff?
Yeah, like I've been trying to get a go code for a certain title that's going to be coming out here, and they said, "Hey, PC code's going to be available on this day. Xbox code's going to be available on this, or console codes are going to be available on this day." And I'm like, "All right, in between
Yeah.
this day, if PlayStation codes come in, just give
I'll
me a
take that
PlayStation
instead,
code
please. Yeah,
instead,
yeah,
because like it doesn't have any online, so I'm not too worried about it."
yeah.
Um,
And that's exactly the same for me. Like, I'm lucky that as you know, Jeff, Xbox used to be my primary platform for all reviews and for everything when I first started doing this. But because I have all the platforms and I realized this as a potential issue, I now basically only use Xbox code if it's a game that we're going to play in co op or something, you know? Like,
mm,
other than that, most of the time, I'm on PC because it's PC code always comes in first. So, and that's kind of my thing, and that's where it connects to this story, is that yes, the Avatar fighting game being pulled 24 less than 24 hours before release does suck. And yes, they should have been more upfront about the possibility of that happening. But I don't think you should be blaming the developers for it. You should be blaming the hurdles they have to jump through in order to get things certified for release on the Xbox platform, is what I'm trying to say. So, there's that one. But what else do we have to talk about today, Jeff?
alrighty. So, so we have Dead Space creator Glenn Schofield is retiring after 35 years. His last title that was shipped was the Callisto Protocol, which he is famous to have left the studio for to start on something new. But in a video posted to LinkedIn, Schofield thanked his family and friends as well as his fans. You supported me. You invited my team's games into your homes. You told me when I was good and you told me when it wasn't so good, but you made me better. Schofield's career began in 1991, where he's got his start on licensed games such as Barbie Game Girl before a stint at THQ. He'd go on to work on licensed games for much of the 90s and early 2000s, including movie tie-in games such as Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King for EA. Schofield came to prominence for most players with Dead Space and his work on the Call of Duty series. I had a front row seat to one of the greatest creative explosions in history, Schofield said in his retirement video. To EA, thank you very much for letting me make Dead Space. Activision, you gave me the keys to 3 Call of Duty games, and I really appreciate your trust. He added, this is an amazing industry with so many talented people, and I know times are tough right now, but the future is really, really bright. I wish you all, the next generation of game makers, the best of luck. Um, yeah, so, like, again, like he's had a lot of like big hits, like, Dead Space did extremely well. I mean, they tried to do the remake, which was fantastic, and EA unfortunately shelved any chance of a sequel to that. But yeah, no, like his work on Call of Duty, especially. Um, yeah.
Yeah, what I would say, because I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I actually saw this post before it was reported anywhere. And if you're on LinkedIn and can go and watch this Glenn Schofield post, please do, because I've never seen somebody so emotional about retirement. Like, you can hear
What
the
about Brock
emotion in
Lesnar?
his you can hear the emotion in his voice, you can see the emotion on his face, and he's one of those developers, in my opinion, that has always been underappreciated. Because yes, he's had an up and down career, okay? And yes, like Callisto Protocol clearly didn't hit in the way that he would have hoped, right? It wasn't able to capture that same magic as Dead Space. But as we said here, going through the projects that he's worked on, even the licensed games he did, like Return of the King, is one of the best licensed video games of all time, in my opinion. Like it was a really good video game.
That was the co-op one, right?
It was, yeah,
Mm.
it was. And it's like, and then we've got obviously Dead Space, and then even the Call of Duty games that Sledgehammer made while he was there were good Call of Duty games. like like if you look at the Call of Duty games he worked on some of the better Call of Duty games from that period of time that he was at Activision. And it's just, this retirement has taken me by surprise, and what I would say is I hope that Glenn Schofield is well. I hope that, because my first instinct, and this is a horrible thing to say, but it's genuinely true. I thought to myself, oh, I wonder if he's retiring because of bad health or something. You know,
Mm.
because as you mentioned, Jeff, he left his previous studio with the idea of starting a new thing, right?
Yeah.
So for him to do that and then like a year later be in this situation where he's retiring from at
It
least the day-to-day operation of the industry,
it could
like
be that maybe he couldn't get the funding to get that next thing off, and was just like, you know
maybe.
what, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, and he's, again, what I want to reiterate to people is you may not know the name Glenn Schofield, but I guarantee you that you know at least some of the games he's worked on, and you've probably played
Yeah,
some of the
Barbie Game
games that
Girl.
he's worked on.
Everybody
So
remembers Barbie Game Girl.
so he's someone that, for those of us who are aware of him, his impact on the industry will always be remembered. Because let's be honest, Dead Space itself helped to popularize a certain style of survival horror game, right?
Yeah.
Like it really did. So yeah, and it's a shame to see him retire, but of course we wish him all the best. He I do want to reiterate that he did say although he's retiring from the day-to-day development of video games, it does sound like he's still going to be open to kind of advising studios and helping out here and there when needed, but he's not going to be in a more day-to-day active role. But he is someone that I'd love to speak to one day. So who knows? Maybe one day we can have him on the podcast here and talk to him about the games he's created because he has created some of my favorite games of the last 2 decades, certainly. And as he mentioned himself, he was in the industry for 35 years, right? And he must have seen so many ups and downs for the industry across the various different studios and companies that he worked for. So, what a career. Congratulations on your retirement. And we wish you all the best here at Analog Stick Gaming. But now, Jeff, do we have any more news before we get to the games?
Do. We'll save the PlayStation stuff for the last. A new report indicates that the European Union is set to grant approval to the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund for the acquisition of Electronic Arts. The report comes courtesy of Reuters. The trillion-dollar public investment fund announced the deal alongside Jared Kushner's affinity partners and private equity firm Silver Lake in September of 2025. The deal is valued at 93.4% stake in EA at approximately $55 billion. Saudi Arabia has made multiple investments in the video game industry over the last decade. In April of 2022, Saudi Arabia's electronic gaming development company purchased a 96% stake in Japanese developer SNK. In 2025, Saudi firm Kidia acquired RTS, the co-owner of the Evolution Championship Series, a popular competitive fighting game event. In March 2026, the EGDC acquired a 5% stake in Capcom. The investment spree may slow down now as the PIF is reportedly running low on cash after the EA acquisition. So, it's the same as the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, where we're
Yeah.
seeing other sections, regions around the world, essentially approving this or not approving this or whatever the case is. Now, the article does talk about how they purchased SNK, and we recently saw how Saudi Arabia handles some of that with City of the Wolves, where City of the Wolves had some character DLC that was spearheaded directly from the Saudi investment, saying, "Hey, bring these characters into the game as guest characters," and the game just did not terribly do well. I think because of some of those announcements, I think some fans were kind of disappointed that we got a DJ and a soccer player essentially put in there instead of fan favorite characters and so on and so forth. But yeah, so this is one more step closer to this deal essentially happening. And like the one thing as well too is the Saudi, like, think of it this way: the Saudis have a ton of money. They've got a ton of leverage in how they've spent that money to different firms and so on and so forth. So let's say they full out buy EA, it goes through, everything's fine. Do you know what other company associates themselves with video games that the Saudi Arabia investment firms and Saudi Arabia public and the Saudi Arabia government are so buddy buddy with that you could see that franchise moving from that developer to EA?
What one's that then?
WWE.
Oh my god, of course. I didn't even think about that. Oh my
Like
god.
they could have enough pull to be like, hey, bring WWE over to EA. We own that, and
Yeah,
we can make
that's
some
true.
more financial deals with it.
And that could also be their way of, let's be honest, as everyone knows if they've watched this podcast for a while, we are wrestling fans, so we're going to go on a tangent for a moment. But the Saudis very publicly for a while have had interest in buying WWE itself, right? And having a company that can make their video games already under their ownership is probably quite an attractive thing. So,
Hmm. Yeah, like that's one thing that could happen is they could basically say to WWE, saying like, "Hey, how long is your 2K contract still going for? 2 years? Oh, okay. Well, in that third year, you're gonna have EA prep a WWE game."
yeah. Yeah, because I remember. So I'm old enough to remember, and some fans won't be, but many gamers will remember when THQ dissolved, right? The original THQ dissolved. They were obviously making the WWE games at the time, and one of the biggest things to come out of that story was the speculation of like who's going to take over the development of the WWE games, because we knew that there was no way WWE games were going to stop, right?
Yeah.
Because they made too much money, they were too popular, and they don't necessarily have the wide popularity of some of the other EA titles, but they certainly, no pun intended, but to use a wrestling term, they would be a jewel in the crown, wouldn't they?
Well,
For EA.
TKO owns UFC, yeah, and the UFC is made by EA.
Yeah,
So it would just make all like it almost seems like everything is kind of conspiring to push WWE to EA.
yeah, yeah. Perhaps. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting time. Obviously, this acquisition with the Saudis, like, it's going to go through. It's the same thing as the Microsoft Activision Blizzard thing, as you mentioned before, Jeff. It's very unlikely that this deal doesn't go through.
Yeah.
There may be some concessions made here or there, but the thing is, how fast will this deal go through? How
Yeah.
quickly can they get it passed everywhere that it needs to be passed? Because we know with the Activision Blizzard King deal, for example, with Microsoft, we know that the UK was the territory that held up that deal, right? They were the ones that made that deal take sort of probably 6 to 12 months longer than it actually needed to take.
Hmm.
Um, and the US didn't help in part of that either, but it was mainly the UK that held up that deal because they actually were the one territory that got concessions out of Microsoft. You know, in the basically they were like, hey, we'll let this deal through, but you cannot own the cloud streaming rights for Activision games. That was effectively the concession they got. Was like, that's where we draw the line. And but it's so funny to me because it brings back that thing of a lot of these regulatory bodies and things, they are independent of the governments, but they don't really feel like it. Because a lot of this stuff just sort of feels like sometimes, hey, yeah, this thing should be passed straight away, but we're gonna try and get some sort of concession out of you because that's our job. That's effectively what it feels like. So it'd be interesting to see how long this one takes to get approved. Will it be approved by by the time that the game in our next news story gets released, for example? That's going to be interesting to see.
Who knows?
What
All
game
right.
am I talking about, Jeff?
Sony has confirmed that God of War La Fey will release in 2027 on February 16th, as the series creative lead confirms that Kratos will return in the next installment. Speaking during a panel at the San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, Sony Santa Monica studio creative head Cory Barlog announced that the next God of War will connect directly to the events from LaFay's story. No further details were revealed during the panel. However, PlayStation 5 entry LaFay is the first mainline God of War title to star a protagonist other than Kratos. Kratos' North wife, LaFay, we'll see her adventure taking place into a lot of mythological drama as a variety of different mythologies kind of collide as she attempts to secure the safeties that she has placed on Kratos and her son. So there's a lot of really, really neat things of. Oh, hold on. I gotta decline that. I don't know what that was for. My phone was going. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of really neat things. Again, like the premise of the game basically states awakening unexpectedly in a strange land after her funeral, Faye discovers the plans she's put into place to protect Kratos and Atreus are now at risk. To save the one she loves, Faye must fight through the afterlife of the gods, through the Everwen, where ruthless gods from across mythology vie for power in a land overflowing with dangerous magic. Um, so it's kind of I do really like that the next God of War game will have ties to this,
Yeah,
specifically because you have a lot of people that are only interested in the God of War games and they look at this and they're like, it's not a God of War game. But if this has strong narrative implications to the next one, it
it will
makes
draw
that a
people in.
must buy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I mean, let's be honest. Back, just to sort of go back to God of War Lafay for a minute. I personally thought that initial reveal was really good. Like, the gameplay looked a lot of fun, and it looked different enough where it's going to feel different to play, but still seemingly have that God of War identity. But I remember saying, even from the moment that we saw it, and I think I said it to you, Jeff, as well, that they do not. Sony historically don't show a game off like that unless the release of the game is quite close. And for them to do that in the first reveal of the game as well, it's very like it's interesting that we've now had this announcement that obviously it's coming in February. It's interesting that the announcement came at Comic Con, and I think that it makes me. I'm glad, as you kind of alluded to, I'm glad that they said that, hey, the next God of War game will have ties to this game, and yes, the next God of War game will feature Kratos again, but it's basically going to be a direct sequel to the events of whatever happened in this game. And we know that this game is already running in parallel to the events of the previous two titles, right?
yeah.
Because of how they've positioned it. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what they do narratively here. Like there's a lot of questions now of people still want to know who blew that horn in God of War. They want to know like who blew the horn, and it's like, was that LaFay? Was that like? There's lots of questions to be answered about those previous two titles still, and I have a sneaking suspicion that God of War LaFay could answer a lot of those questions, and then
Mhm.
lead us into whatever the next chapter of this story is. And I'm very, very excited by that for sure.
All righty. Our last story of the day is very topical. A prominent games industry analyst has shed some light on how comparatively few physical PlayStation games are actually sold in the US these days. Circana Senior Director and Video Games Analyst Advisor Matt Piscatella was responding to a news story about a Wolverine trailer being flooded with comments protesting Sony's decision to stop releasing new games on disc starting from January 2028. Posting on Blue Sky, Piscatella noted that while players should be making their displeasure heard, the reality is that physical PlayStation games don't sell anywhere near the sales numbers they used to in the United States. Two PlayStation video games sold more than 10,000 physical units in the US during the week ending July 11th, 2026. Seven have sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. He added, commenting is
That's great.
cool, using your voice and all that, but commenting is cheap. I don't know. Piscatella later clarified that the figures don't only refer to first party PlayStation games, but total PlayStation games, all publishers, um,
I mean,
all
let's be
PlayStation
honest.
platforms.
That is very telling, isn't it? If we've basically got 7 games on PlayStation in the year to date that have managed to sell 100,000 at minimum physical copies,
Yeah.
that basically tells you why they're making the decision they're making.
Hmm.
Because I hate to break it to people, but we've been saying this for ages. Whether people like it or not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze with physical production of games
Yeah.
anymore because physical is effectively dead.
Yeah. Like if you take a look at like, let's juices were the squeeze, like the grocery aspect of it. All right.
Yeah.
So if you go into a grocery store, all right, and there are these muffins that you absolutely love. You go in, you buy the muffins every single Friday. You go in, you buy them, you leave. You go them, you buy them, you leave. Then you come in one week and the muffins aren't there. And you talk to the guy and said, like, hey, why are the muffins right there? We've only had one person come in and buy them every week, and the rest of them are going bad.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
That is so we've discontinued those
You
muffins.
wouldn't be wasting. Yeah, you wouldn't be wasting the
Yeah.
money
Be
of
like, oh, I
making
come
the
in and buy them
product
every
that
Friday. I'm
isn't
like, oh,
selling.
you're that guy. I'm like, yeah, sorry, we can't justify the purchase, the ingredients or whatever to make those muffins
Yeah.
because they just weren't selling.
Yeah.
It's that basic thing. If you ever go into a grocery store and wonder why they're not carrying a certain product, it's because it probably wasn't selling. So
Yeah.
like you'll have people that'll come in and buy those things for sure. You know, but at the exact
E-
same
Every
time, more
everyone's
people need to
gonna
buy
buy
it.
something, right? But it's
Yeah,
about whether that audience is big enough. Like,
yeah,
there's always going to be an audience for every single thing in the world.
yeah,
Podcasts are the same. Everything is the same. But it's whether the audience is big enough to make it worth the time doing.
yeah, exactly.
And especially in a business sense, like, let's remember that Sony and PlayStation aren't doing this as a hobby anymore. Like, this isn't some emerging business
Yeah,
where they're doing it to try and grab an audience or whatever. They know who their audience is. They've got the statistics, and if these numbers from Matt Piscatella are accurate, which I would be led to believe that they are because Matt Piscatella has quite a history of being very good at this analytical stuff.
yeah.
Like, physical on the PlayStation platform, at least in the US, is clearly dead. Like,
And the thing too is like it's not just like, oh, they just manufacture and blah blah blah. All right, let's say for example they have that factory, which probably costs them a ton of money to keep operating and employee costs and material costs and all that kind of stuff. And if the majority of like those games, if they're selling, I don't know, say 16% of the discs that they're actually manufacturing, then that's a lot of money they're spending for 16% of what's actually selling.
absolutely agree with you. It's crazy. It's I get it. I understand people's apprehension, and I understand that as human beings we don't like change. But the reality is that we've been on this road to going more and more digital with video games for a really long time. And I look at other worlds, like the music world, the movie world, right? Music was the one that went digital as fast as possible, and it went too fast that it nearly killed the industry because they didn't know how to adapt.
Yeah.
Right? So because music effectively went as soon as digital music was released, it basically killed physical music. Movies have been a little bit different, where there's definitely been a rise in digital in terms of movies.
Well, music also has kind of less of a collector nature I mean, you have people that are collecting records and all that stuff because they're rare prints and stuff, but
Yeah,
you don't really see people generally going like, "Oh, hey, I've got 40,000 CDs and blah." Like
true,
it's not as much
true.
of a collector's thing. Whereas like movies, like you have the steel books and the
Yeah,
collector's editions and those types of things. So
yeah,
it the situation becomes more dire the more collectible certain
yeah.
things are.
Absolutely. And but what I'm trying to say is like if you look at movies and video games, the movie transition to digital was very slow comparatively to music, right?
Yeah,
And even movies did this weird thing where they almost fully transitioned to digital, and then a few years ago there was a resurgence in physical movies again, and people started buying like 4K Blu-rays. But the reason that that happened is because they were using 4K Blu-rays as a way to basically remaster old movies and reprint them and make them look better than they did before, right?
yeah,
And that meant that they were able to find an audience that was sizable enough that there were companies out there that were like, okay, these 4K Blu-rays are worth releasing, right? But then you look at a company like Disney. Disney don't produce their own physical movies anymore because to them it's not worth it. They have given the rights to produce their physical movies to someone else. I think it might even be Sony who has the rights to produce
mm,
Disney physical movies. And it's like, but that's because for Disney themselves, it's not worth it because they know we've got Disney Plus.
yeah.
People can sign up to Disney Plus and watch all of these movies.
Well, there's few
you know?
places that even really sell the physical media anymore, like movies, like Best Buy stopped doing it. But you get
Yeah,
Walmart and Targets and those types of places, like they sell tons. They
yeah,
even sell tons on DVD because they know they can just toss a DVD in a kid's room, basically, and they're good. No kid's going to go, Mom, it's not
yeah.
1440p.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so, and like, so movies have had this slow transition. Games have kind of been in the middle of the two. The transition obviously hasn't been as quick as music because that was effectively overnight in the grand scheme of things. Like, but it was quicker than movies in the sense that we got to 50-50. We got to a 50-50 split with digital and physical sales within like a few years in the video game realm.
Yeah.
In movies it took nearly a decade for that to happen, you know? So it's like it's
Well, yeah,
they're all
it's kind of like the timetable for each of those is based on the tech at the time
yeah,
because like music didn't really have everything in place by the time that they were kind of doing it, like and
yeah.
um I mean there's tons of places that have were selling just MP3s because a lot of people are like, oh, I just want that one song and I don't want to buy
That's
the
true.
album,
That's
because
true.
like
I mean, my main thing though was that because we've been on this road for so long in so many industries, and this hasn't been an overnight thing that's happened in gaming like it did in music, I don't really understand why people are pushing back on something that they know makes no sense deep down. Like,
I mean, like I can understand to a certain point because like PlayStation Network just went down a little while ago, like
yeah,
yesterday or whatever, so people couldn't play a lot of their games. Um, but I mean, a lot of those games are mostly a lot of the online stuff because like most of the time you can still play your digital games. They just need that check in. So I think people
yeah.
were just going like, oh, I couldn't play this online game. Well, no shit.
If you had the disc, you still couldn't play the online game if the servers were offline.
Exactly.
You know, it's
I think it was
it's
because
one
I think they had the online beta for
for
Tokon,
Tokon. Yeah,
which I still want to try and jump into if I can.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, No, it's again, it's one of those stories where it's like when you actually have the numbers like in front of you, it's a completely different story than what the comments are really, leading
I
to. A lot of people are
completely
just,
agree with you.
bandwagon jumping and whatnot to a certain extent. Anyways,
Yeah.
I mean, again, like a lot of people love the collectible nature of it, um, and I get it. I used to be someone that was heavily in the digital. I mean, I've got a CD binder or DVD binder there that is like look at this. This is my 360 collection. I got rid of the I
Jeff's
got rid
pulling
of the
out the physical.
I got rid of the cases because like I was moving so many times that having like almost 500 Xbox 360
It's
cases.
easier to move without the cases, right, and just have a
Yeah.
binder. Yeah.
So like this is my Xbox 360 collection.
Oh my god, this guy has a he has a binder full of Xbox
This is a
360
500
games.
disc binder, and I have 7 pages not filled.
Oh wow, so Jeff has a lot of Xbox
Yeah, so this
360
this is a lot
games.
of Xbox 360 games. Now I kept the cases for the games that I really liked, like the Halos and the Gears and things that I've had signed because I have a what Gears 4 is signed by Joe DiMaggio
Nice,
and
nice,
but
nice. I love that. But yeah, I just what I would say, and I've said this to our friend Keith Mitchell at the Outer Haven as well. People are they're aiming their displeasure in the wrong place, and they're aiming it at the wrong thing.
well, yeah, there was that game that was featured on PlayStation's YouTube channel, which is just this little indie game, and people just were like downvoted it, whatever, and like comment striked it and all that kind of stuff just because it was on PlayStation's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and also it's not just that, but I want to make a point to people for a minute, if we can. The move to digital isn't the problem. The problem is the lack of legal protections for the consumer as we move into the digital only landscape.
Yeah, it's the limitations of access essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's people just want assurances that if they buy that product, they own it and
Yeah.
it lives in perpetuity or whatever that.
Because realistically, let's be honest, Jeff, and I'll ask you this question since we're on the subject anyway. If PlayStation came out and said, "Do you know what? Yeah, we are doing this, but we assure you that if you buy a digital game, you will own it forever." Do you think anyone would actually have a problem at that point?
Yeah, I think again people are still hung up on having a tangible product, even if it's like a case, because like people talk about like, oh, I guess I won't have a a case on my shelf. Yeah, you will still have a case. You can toss the case on there. You're not like displaying the discs. You're
Yeah.
not having someone walk in. That's an impressive
Yeah.
collection, but are there discs in every case? Like,
Yeah, you and the thing is, and we've said this before, but like this generation, when PlayStation does a collector's edition of one of their games, right?
yeah,
It's it needed to be digital code for the game because they didn't know whether someone who only had a digital console was buying it, right?
yeah,
But in these collector's editions, you get the code for the game, but you still get a case for the game, even though you don't have a disc. So you're not really losing out on anything. If you're really that concerned about having something to put on your shelf as a collector point of view, you're not really losing out on anything. But now I think it's time that we get into what we've been playing, Jeff.
sure.
And we obviously have both played Halo, and you've played a bit of it. We will play more of it together. I have actually played the whole thing. Halo Campaign Evolved. This is the Unreal Engine 5 remake of the single player portion slash co op portion of the original Halo that released over 20 years ago now, which makes me feel old. But I I want to start with these prequel missions because I know that that's what you have finished,
Yeah, that's
Jeff.
all I've played. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, yes, this is a remake, but they have added a new side campaign effectively, which is three prequel missions where you play as Chief, who teams up with fan favorite character Sergeant Major Johnson, like funny guy, basically, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how you felt about these missions, Jeff, but I really liked them. I was quite impressed.
So the one thing that I liked about it was I like the narrative aspect of it because you end up teaming up with a bunch of other, I think, shock troopers or whatever, and they're not necessarily fans of the Spartans because they feel like that's what was replacing them. They feel like it's basically like war propaganda, and like the Spartans are nothing more than like armored, you know, attractions more so than anything that is committed
Yeah.
to, sayings like soldiers are born, they're not built. And the Master Chief says, like we all, it doesn't matter where we come from, it's what we do that actually matters. And there is an undeniable respect that kind of comes between all of those parties involved. And I think if the story leaned a little bit more on that, I think in some moments that were maybe to build tension and maybe conflict between them, I think that it could have really elevated that story. I think the missions themselves are a little bit repetitive because the entire thing takes place on one of the ships, which is a lot of purple. But it has these like biomes, which are like these domed landscapes essentially within this ship, which means that the ship is absolutely massive. Um, which is kind of fun and has these little moments. I do wish there was um, um, a vehicle mission in terms of like being on ghosts and going through valleys and all that kind of stuff, because I think that could have played in to a lot more. You do get a flight sim kind of space shooter type of thing at the end of that mission, which
Yeah.
honestly it was good. I don't think it was great, but it was just good enough where if another studio came into Microsoft and said, "Hey, we want to make a whole game that's nothing
Of
but a
that.
flight sim, and you're
Yeah.
taking on government art things and stuff, and maybe there's missions where you're getting saved by Master Chief and blah 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 blah." Those missions were just good enough where I'm like, yeah, I could play 6 to 8 hours of just
Yeah.
this.
And I agree. I think that those specific sections of it, to me, almost felt like a tester for something.
Yeah, I think it definitely feels that way into a certain extent, with like the ships and the biomes and things like that as well too, of creating these artificial spaces.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it and the one thing I like too is like much like the campaign is it brings in some of the features that we didn't get until two,
Yeah.
because like you can go through the main campaign now wielding a energy sword, which you couldn't in the original, which is like it sounds like I'm making shit up. But no, like there were certain weapons that you could
Yeah.
just not use. You couldn't hijack a wraith in the original, but now you can.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of really neat stuff. They also added new skulls. One of them allows you to play the entire game in third person, which is pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
um, but in terms of like the prequel missions, I think they are additive in a way where it's fun to see new stuff, but I don't think that they are essential. I think you could go through this entire package of what the campaign offers. I've seen some of it. Burnt Peanut played about 12 hours of it the other day. I've seen so much of it that the purchase alone just for the campaign is fantastic. This just feels like supplemental fun as
Yeah.
opposed to anything that is essential. I think if the
To
missions were
me,
a bit
what
more
I would
impactful,
say, what I would say to me is these additional missions felt like they were accomplishing two things. One, it felt like a way of them saying to people, hey, we know this is a one-to-one remake that you may have played several times already.
Yeah.
So here's some new content for you as well. But two, I think as we just mentioned, these three missions did feel sort of like their testing ground for what can we do in like let's remember this is the first Halo game made in Unreal Engine 5, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was them testing out like what can we do in Unreal Engine 5? Are there things that we potentially could do with Halo now that we haven't been able to do in the past? And I think overall, even just speaking on those missions from that point of view of it, I was impressed on a technical level as well because considering this is built in a brand new engine, it still looks and feels like Halo. But it's, looks better than the Halo's ever looked, in my opinion.
My my only critique so far, and this is again just the earlier missions, but I mean I'm guessing that the infrastructure and changes or the aesthetics carry on to the main campaign, is I think
Mm-hmm.
that the inside of the ships, like the kind of that purple and chrome or whatever, is a little too chrome. It's a little too shiny.
Interesting. Okay.
It can
Okay.
be really hard to determine what is just a pod and what's a weapon pod.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that's a fair comment, I would say.
Because it's really hard. I mean, and here's the thing: it's really hard in sometimes to pick out enemies from the environment because it's so detailed that when you get down to the last couple of enemies, it'll put markers above the enemies so you know where they're at.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So, because like before, you could tell a creature from the environment just based off the
Yeah.
texture work and detail. Where
Yeah.
now, if there's like a sniper basically hiding in a bush or whatever like that, you can't fucking tell until they put that shield up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm what I would say again, what I want to highlight is for a first go round with Unreal Engine 5 from this team, I think they've done a good job here. Like from a purely technical standpoint, the game I don't know how it runs on console, but it does run well on PC. I know you've had a few issues, but that could be connected to your specific Xbox, we believe, right, Jeff? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. I would say, like, you don't necessarily have to, if you're someone who owns an Xbox, for example, or even a PC, you don't have to go and buy the premium upgrade if you've got Game Pass. You could just wait and play this thing on Game Pass.
Yeah, I just bought the
Although,
$30 upgrade. Although
yeah,
you get the costumes and stuff, and the costumes look sick. I picked one that looked amazing, but then they're not in the cutscenes.
yes, I noticed that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a little frustrating, but I do. For me, the one thing about this where I'm like, seeing how well they've made this, I now wish that this version of the game had multiplayer. Because if it did, I
I
think
think
this would be the definitive version of the game.
I think that they're saving multiplayer for the Halo 2 remake just because Halo 2's multiplayer is where it really kicked off. That was like
That's
the
true.
thing that really did. And I mean, like, if you get the legendary ending, you do get an answer of whether or not there is a Halo 2 remake. Um,
True. True.
can you stop chewing on the cord? That's a very expensive cord. You are a very inexpensive kitten. Do the math. Ow, ow, she's got me. Um, she's chewing on the webcam cord, and like that's why
Oh,
it was like
lovely.
tilting back
So
and
if
forth.
Jeff disappears, it's the cat's fault.
Yeah, it's like Nix, what are you doing? Um, yeah. No, like I think honestly, we're if they're going to do multiplayer at all, it would be for Halo 2. Just because Halo 1
Your audio has gone, Jeff. So I don't know what's happened. I can't hear you right now. Your audio has disappeared. No, you are muted currently. This is what happens when the cat comes around. No, there's still nothing. You're muted. It says you're muted. No, no, it says you're muted in StreamYard. Sort of. You're a bit. No, you're gone. Gone again. Interesting.
She was
Interesting.
playing around with shit.
There we go. Oh no, hold on. You were back then, and then you've gone again. No, you've gone again. You were like super back. Not quite. It says you're muted in StreamYard again. Let me try and unmute you.
All right. Can
Hello.
you hear me now?
You're back. You are super back now.
That was Nick's little
It was Nick's. It was all Nick's fault. Just like in Star Wars Outlaws when Nix gets you killed because the enemies see.
No, she hopped around. I think muted it, pulled the thing. I have no idea. Um, no, I honestly, if you were gonna, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the first Halo did not have online play. It was just local.
I think it was just local.
Because I think
Yes, you're
Halo 2
correct.
was the Xbox Live generation of where that kind of kickstarted it.
I think so. I can't remember because they did have Xbox Live on the original Xbox as well, but I don't remember whether Halo specifically had an online mode or whether it was just local. Let
Yeah,
us know
Halo
in the
2 was the
comments.
first to have built-in Halo 2 multiplayer.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
in 2004.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the other one only had local. So again, like if you're going to do multiplayer for Halo,
Yeah.
I think it is having that second game. Although again, like it would be nice to just have the multiplayer from it, but I mean again, like this game had a very quick turnaround because like
Yeah.
we only really heard about the Unreal Engine Halo stuff in 2024. So we don't know how
Yeah.
long they had been really working on it.
True, true. And I mean, to be fair, that actually hits on something that I was just going to bring up. Now that they have these assets as well, the turnaround for a potential Halo 2 remake would be a lot faster, right? Like you would
Mhm.
assume that it's something they could do relatively quickly by modern game development standards.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see. I do think that obviously if they're gonna remake two, they might as well remake Halo 3 as well. And I think that that's a really good thing to do. Like some people will say, "Oh, they're only doing that because Halo has kind of lost its luster," sort of thing. And yeah, I get that. But let's remember, there's also like 20 years has passed. More than 20 years has passed since the very original Halo, okay? Which means for the trilogy as a whole, effectively 2 decades has passed. There's a lot of new gamers now that never played those original Halo games.
Yeah.
And remaking them in this way not only allows you to have your team familiarize themselves with the tech and get used to building in a new engine, but it allows you to bring a classic beloved trilogy potentially to a brand new audience, you
Do you
know?
think they'll
Uh,
fix the Halo 2 ending?
oh, that's a big question. I mean, they should, but I'm not sure they will.
Finish the fight. Credits.
Yeah. Oh, you're giving me flashbacks now. Oh God. But either way, what I would say is you can go and read my full review on the outerhaven.net right now. I'll link it below. Myself and Jeff will, of course, play some Halo and get that recorded and get it up on the channel. We'll probably do that tomorrow now. I know Jeff, you're off tomorrow, so we'll figure out what we can do. But Halo's not the longest game in the world, so we'll probably upload it in sort of one mission chunks. So we'll do like first mission, second mission, etc., just to give you multiple episodes. Kind of a bit like how we did with our Call of Duty playthrough that we put up on the channel a while ago. So if you haven't checked that out, please go and check that out. That was an interesting experience. let's put it that way. As soon as we finished that campaign, I effectively uninstalled the game.
Yeah, I
Never
was
played
like,
it
all right,
again.
I'm done. Last
Yeah,
Call of Duty, I'm gonna play for a while because I ain't buying the next one.
yeah. But Jeff, I do believe there is something else you've played that isn't Halo this week
Yeah,
that you can talk about. So what
I
is
played
that?
two things.
Okay,
One is a turn-based RPG named Starbites.
interesting. Okay,
Let's see here. I just want to see who makes it again. I can't remember the developer.
I'm gonna look this one up while you're
Um,
telling us about it as
so
well.
this is made by Icona Games,
Okay,
ICINA. It's published by NIS America. So this is the same publisher behind the Tales of the Trails series. Sorry. So this is this team's first game, and
nice,
honestly,
nice.
from a first game perspective, it's actually pretty decent. Um, I will say that there's definitely some kind of rocky aspects of it that don't quite work. But basically, it takes place on this planet called Bitter, that used to be a destination hotspot for tourism. But then there was a war essentially that broke out, and all of the satellites and everything like that orbiting the planet basically crashed down and kind of desertificationed the entire planet. And so basically, you play as Lakita, which is the character that's on screen right now. And it's a turn based game where um, you are in a mech. You have other teammates with you that are each in their own respective mechs. This is early on when you kind of have this like nightmare. That's your teammates right there. So
Eggman's
when
in this game.
you've got some teammates that kind of join in and help you and whatnot. One's a bounty hunter, one's kind of an experienced ex-military guy, um, and everybody has their own style of mech.
Nice,
So
available
you've
now.
also got standard turn-based stuff. Like there's nothing terribly elaborate about the combat. Like it's basically just as turn-based as turn-based gets, which is one of the issues I kind of have with it. I kind of wish it had like the Mario, Paper Mario kind of thing, where like different things would happen depending on button presses and timing and things like that.
Yeah.
Gwendol is the strongest character in my game. She's just absolutely mopping the floor with anybody.
I mean,
Basically,
I will say this looks quite fun. It looks like
it,
something that even I
I
would enjoy.
I will say that if you do end up getting the game, do not get it on Switch or Switch 2. That's where I'm playing it on Switch 2. It runs really good when I'm playing docked, but I will say
Okay.
that the visuals look drastically better, and I mean drastically better on PlayStation and PC. Almost like it almost seems like the entire lighting engine was changed for Switch. It doesn't quite
Wow.
have the same kind of sharpness or contrast that the PC version has.
Hmm,
Um,
interesting.
but like the game is um,
Some
very
screenshots here
very
as well.
decent. Like it's got this very nice look to it. I like the animation and I like the cutscenes. Like I would watch an animated series with these characters. That's Gwendol. She's like pretty much like the only real bit of fan service this game kind of has. Everything else is pretty decent. But every piece you get for your mech visually changes it as well as adds stats to it. So you can make the mechs look kind of different. It doesn't get full different, like it doesn't drastically change it. That character with the big giant mech warrior kind of mech, he's got a heat gauge, so if he expends that heat gauge, he can't attack for a little while. Um,
Interesting.
Enemies have the kind of standard weakness type of thing that you find in like Octopath Traveler,
Hmm.
where like depending on like if you're attacking an enemy that has a weakness, it's going to do more damage. Or if you don't have certain precautions against certain
And I'm
things, you'll take
assuming, and
damage.
I'm assuming these here are like basically you're leveling up characters, right? And
Yeah,
selecting
so
different things.
that menu is incredibly outdated because you generally can work through all of the trees at once. There's no limitations. You never see
Interesting.
those
Okay.
locks, so that is something that is probably in locked for like
And
beta or demo purposes.
I
Um,
imagine so. Yeah.
but yeah, so like you can work through kind of different builds to an extent. It's not that deep or anything like that. You can build up like certain things will affect your like attack and defense and speed and so on and so forth. I will say the bosses are much harder than they need to be in terms of like the friction you're having against enemies prior to that. They are massive damage sponge. I mean,
Interesting. Okay.
massive, especially the witch, especially where like you can only really damage the witch like considerably if you're taking out all of her little grunts, but she summons her grunts on almost every single one of her turns. So you have to use your damage stuff to get rid of the grunts and then hope that you have somebody left over to actually damage her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like
That's
I will
crazy.
say like the story is fairly decent. It's not amazing. The combat is pretty repetitive because there's not really that many enemy types. You're constantly seeing the same enemy types, and when you're constantly seeing the same patterns and the same types all together in certain ways, you develop this order of how you go about things that just makes it the same battle over and over and over again. And you can say like, oh, I'm going to change it up. Well, no, you won't, because then you're going to take more damage by
Yeah.
experimenting with other attacks. So you kind of fall into this thing of doing the same strikes and the same attacks over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But
So
it is good. Like it is a pretty decent game. I'm going
good.
to be working on the review here probably today or tomorrow. But yeah, like I will say that if you do get a chance to play it, play it on Steam or PC or PS5 or whatever. Or I don't know
Mm.
if it's on Xbox, because like the Switch 2 version just it when you're playing it portable, it doesn't feel like it's really keeping the frame rate. Battles in boss fights are pretty chuggy. Um,
Okay.
Even like trying to access menus in the middle of a fight, you're constantly tapping the button down to go to where you need to because the lag is so bad. But when
Wow.
I play it on my TV, there's no lag whatsoever.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it just
That's
has not been optimized for Switch 2 portable yet. And honestly,
yeah.
like I don't see how this is a Switch 2 version because it just doesn't even match like what this game's playing like on the Steam Deck. It just doesn't feel
Interesting.
like it's been optimized for Switch 2. It feels like they made a Switch 2 version just to have a Switch 2 version. Because like when I got code, it was for Switch 1, and instead of emailing to who knows that kind of delay, I ended up just buying the $5 upgrade,
Yeah.
and like it didn't feel like this is a Switch 2 version. I think it's one of the most unoptimized Switch 2 games I think I've played in a while.
Wow.
But
Okay.
like the game is generally pretty fun. I'm not blown
Oh,
away by it,
that's good.
but
I mean,
it it does
I
have
like the
character.
art style. Is
Yeah,
like as you know that's one thing that did stand out to me. I obviously haven't played it. Based on what you're saying, it certainly is a game that sounds like it has some limitations. But again, this is
you can hear
from what I
banter.
understand the first sort of major game from the developer, right? So good on them. Wish them all the best, and we'll definitely keep an eye on what they do in the future. Banter has a few barks. He seems to have got some energy back after his
He's
swimming earlier
dreaming.
today.
He's dreaming. Those are his little puppy barks when he dreams. I was just
That's
recording
so.
some of them. So funny.
That's so
Yeah,
true.
and the other thing that has been taking up a lot of my time is Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. Um,
Our
I
good friend
finally
of the
kind
show,
of
Scott Adams, has been playing that as well.
yeah. It takes a lot to get into that DLC. Let me tell you. I had like 40 missions or so, 40 bosses to vanquish before I could even get into the DLC. Um,
Wow.
it does have this other mode that you kind of get early on, which is the conflux. It's like a roguelike mode where you go in, you make yourself better, you get items and stuff. And it's really, really good for leveling up your characters and getting weapon parts that you need to kind of like get your weapons in a state where you can actually do some damage.
Okay.
It's added crossplay for the first time that the game has had, which is great. They released a Switch 2 version that apparently runs extremely well. So now you can play with other players across other platforms. The weird thing, though, and I hope it's something that they address, is that conflicts mode is only single player.
Oh.
So for all the things that they've done to make this game easier to play multiplayer, if someone's like, hey, yeah, 4 hours in, they're like, yeah, I need to go do conflicts to get some like weapon parts and stuff. So like, I'll peace out and see you later, buddy. Like you can't bring your team with you to do conflicts. It's like you could individually do conflicts and then
Yeah.
do it that way, but it just feels weird that this mode is so built on having multiplayer because of again like crossplay, bringing more players to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
the mode itself is, or the DLC the DLC itself um, is one of the more beefier expansions I think I've seen that a game provide, but also it it, it's the type of game where I have two ways of either recommending it or not recommending it. If you really like the narrative aspects of Granblue Relink, the base game, and you're like, oh, I want more story moments with these characters. I want more character depth and all that kind of stuff. You don't get any of that here. There is a story. It's extremely wafer thin. It feels like it was almost added in maybe last minute to give context to certain things. Because this is generally just a whole bunch of like boss rush missions and like other ways to leveling up your characters and taking them on more fights and stuff. And it does that superbly. On that aspect of it, I recommend it wholeheartedly. Like there is so much to tackle here. There are way more difficulties. There are way more sigils to add to create different builds. You can now recruit characters like in Dragon's Dogma, where you recruit another character's like another player character's central character and then bring them in. So that's really cool, and they're really powerful. Um, they added 6 new characters, 2 of which were enemies from the previous bout, and you can recruit them at any time, even if it doesn't make sense in the story. It tells you that, and it also adds like chaos difficulty and chaos plus and chaos plus plus, and then defy infinity, which is like the last mode. Um, the one thing that's kind of weird is there's a boss in Defy Infinity that is so hard that if you are a ranged character, you're fucked because he teleports around so much that by the time that you fire off a shot or a grenade or whatever the case is, he's moved.
Oh wow. Okay.
So Defy Infinity is almost too tough for certain builds and certain characters. But
Mhm.
thankfully, like there's like 30 characters now, so you can find somebody that's really going to work for you. And when you want to level them up, you just go into the conflicts and just do that over and over again, and you'll get a ton of resources for weapons and all sorts of stuff. Um, but like the this expansion is fantastic. Like it's really fantastic. I have my gripes with it. Like no multiplayer and conflicts makes no sense. The lack of any real story um, also kind of hurts because like I love the story in the base game. It was one of my favorite things of that game. It was so fun to play, and the story and character moments were really nice. But getting to that DLC is a chore, especially if you only did a little bit of the end game. Because I had probably like a good 40 to 50 fights before I could get to the DLC.
Oh wow, okay. So you
Um,
had
and
quite a lot to
and
do.
each of those fights take about, I don't know, say about 10 minutes.
Okay,
So like,
interesting.
I probably spent like a good like 25 to 30 hours just getting to the DLC, let alone the DLC.
Wow,
And again, like it is just a lot. And one thing that's kind of neat is like they bring back a ton of old bosses for you to fight, but they give them entirely new move sets. So
okay,
they
that's cool.
feel familiar, but they are different. They do give you a lot of good reason to kind of be excited to kind of take them on. And there are some new enemies and stuff. There's some new challenges. The conflicts has these like spot the difference kind of things and stuff, or like which character moved first, or blah blah blah, like to break up the gameplay.
Yeah,
Um, but like again, like the DLC is going to satisfy you or not satisfy you depending on whether or not you really wanted more story stuff or you just wanted more fights. If you wanted
yeah,
more fights, you will find this DLC to be one of the best DLCs to ever be crafted. The other end of the spectrum though is you'll be like, yeah, the game is giving me what I want from it, but I wanted just a little bit more. And that's kind of where I'm at, is I just wanted a little bit more story stuff.
that's fair. That's fair. I do. Before we go, I want to talk about Adventures of Elliot, which since the last time we recorded, I obviously mentioned I was playing it. I have now put out my review for the game. I scored it a 9.5 out of 10 on our scale at analogstickgaming.com. You can go and obviously read my full review, but I'll sort of summarize it like this for people because I think people are confused about what this video game is because it's made by the
Yeah,
developers of
I
the
was too.
Octopath Traveler games, you know, Octopath Traveler 1, 2, and 0. This is not a turn-based video game. It's an action adventure, essentially Zelda-like video game. And one of the things I say in my review is this is if you're someone who's a fan of the classic top-down sort of 2D art style Zelda titles that Nintendo doesn't make anymore. This is Square's attempt of speaking to you, and they've done a really good job of it. Like this is, I'm shocked, but this is one of my favorite games of the year so far.
Yeah, like for me, this is the one of those types of things where I think the marketing failed this game
I agree.
drastically, because when you told me that it was like real-time combat, I immediately looked up a trailer. I'm like, holy shit, this is not like Octopath Traveler. Because like I played Octopath Traveler and I loved it.
Yeah,
But when I saw Octopath Zero and Two and all these other ones, I'm like, no, I'm burnt out and I've only played one of your
on that
games.
type of game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this is fully real time. There's dungeon aspects to it. There's environmental puzzles and things to solve.
Yeah, like I've got uh, a certain Switch game that I'm, gonna trade in and then, probably get some like eShop money or whatever, and maybe buy that game because,
Yeah.
don't got
I
a
mean,
code
I'd
for it.
certainly recommend it. I did try and get you a code, unfortunately, but they didn't get back to me. But I would say to people that, as I said, if you're a fan of that type of Zelda game, because this thing wears its inspiration on its sleeve as well. Like this is Square's version of Zelda. That's effectively what they've made here.
I
You've
will say it's
got
a bad title.
yeah, for the actual game itself, The Adventures of Elliot. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
god. And that's not even the full title.
yeah. Like honestly, can you imagine if like instead of like Link, his name was, I don't know, like Bobby,
Yeah, yeah,
you
just like
know,
a random name.
and they
Yeah.
called it like The Adventures of Bobby.
Adventures of Bobby. But yeah, so like because it's what's interesting about it. So you start off in a certain time period in the
Hmm.
game, okay? and you're in this kingdom, and they're protected by a force field that is powered by the magic of the princess. Okay, so she doesn't ever leave the castle, but she can speak to you in your ear through these magic earrings that she gives you, and she's able to heal you in fights and things. And then you discover effectively this massive door which is a portal through time, and you can go to several different time periods within the same area of the game, and it looks different, and there's different people to speak to. Some of them are in the future, some are in the past, and it is like the subheading for my review is an adventure through time, because that's what it is.
Hmm.
And as you get a bit further into the game, you become disconnected from the princess because her magic can't reach you anymore, right? But you get this fairy friend. And does that sound familiar to you? Who else has a fairy friend? It's just like,
Mm.
so that's what I mean. Like they very much wear their inspiration on their sleeve. The difference with Elliot's fairy friend is she can actually help you in combat by attacking enemies. And
Me
you can even
scanning, hey, listen, doesn't help you in Zelda?
and
Come on.
and you can even play
See?
the game in co-op and have someone else control the fairy for you, which is so they've done some nice things to separate this game from Zelda. Like, yes, you get your different weapon types. You got your sword, you got your spear, you got your bow and arrow, you've got a boomerang, which is personally one of my favorites. But the other thing is that when you defeat enemies, and in particular when you defeat bosses, you collect this resource called Magicite. Okay? And you can take this Magicite to a certain trader in one of the towns, and you can use it to like you've collected like these shards of magicite, and you can use it to form a magicite, which is basically a perk for your weapon. So it could be environmental damage, it could be your attacks have a bigger range to them, it could be that the attacks do multiple hits now, things like that, right? And as you upgrade these, it's funny, it's a really clever system, because the more magicite you make, you basically upgrade your knowledge effectively in magicite, so that each time you make magicite, it's getting better and better and better,
Hmm.
and then you can use the money you earn in the game to increase the amount of magicite that each of your weapons can hold as well, because you'll have basically a certain number of slots, but the way the slots work is it will say, okay, you've got 20 magicite points that you can use for a specific weapon, okay? And on that weapon, you might have one magicite that costs you 5 points to equip. You might have another magicite that costs you 8 points. And then you might have like four more that are 1 point each. So, depending on which ones you're trying to equip, and how big your box is and the space that you have to equip them, you can get to the point where you have so many magicite equipped that you basically become like a god in this video game,
Yeah.
and you're just like stunning people left and right, and it's very very fun. And in typical JRPG slash Japanese action adventure game style, it has a very particular art style to it and visual style to it, and it also has a very particular style to its music, and it has some of my favorite music of the year by far. Like,
Mm.
I actually listen to the soundtrack of this game now without even playing the game. Like
Yeah,
it's on my sort of supply.
I might see if my EB Games have a physical copy on Switch too. Um, just because I was just checking some trades and stuff, and I can get pretty down close to the purchase price
Ah,
of it with
nice,
Star Fox, and yeah, I got a code for
nice,
Granblue, so I don't need the physical
nice, nice.
anymore.
But yeah,
Yeah,
because I have a feeling, and it would obviously depend on how Jeff feels about the game, and we are going to do our awards slightly differently this year as well, which we'll speak about. But this may sneak into some of our analog stick gaming game awards this year, Jeff. I have a feeling. So it's going to be an interesting one to talk about. So hopefully you do get the opportunity to play it because I do really recommend it. As I said, recommend it to any Zelda fan. I think it's the best. It's the best Zelda-like game that I have played. In the sense that there are some indie ones out there that clearly take inspiration from Zelda, but do different things.
yeah. I
Whereas this Whereas this game is actually trying to be a one-to-one alternative for a classic Zelda video game. And I
yeah, like
think that
I think
that's
in
what
terms
speaks
of
to
like
me.
Zelda likes, I think like Darksiders is probably still going to be up there for me because like the original Darksiders was very much a Zelda like.
Yeah, that's very true actually. I forget about Darksiders because it's been so long since we've had one of those.
Well, I got
But
the War Mastered edition for PS5. They sent me code for that, and it's good. Like it looks good. It runs extremely good and stuff like that. But it is just a remaster, so it's not like a mind blowing transition because like
yeah,
there's only so much you can really do before you remake
for
something.
sure, for sure.
And
So before we get out of here, Jeff, what do we have coming up on the site over the next week or so? Any reviews are going to be dropping?
yeah, so I've got
Anything?
the review mostly written for Granblue. That's going to be going up this weekend. I'm going to be working on the review for Starbites as well. I just got a little bit more time I want to spend with it before I can kind of call it a day. We're going to have a review for Bistro up. It's been submitted by Kelvin, so I'll be going over and publishing that as well too.
Nice,
I've
nice.
got Rebecca working on a game right now. Farlands, I think is what it's called.
Okay,
I think that's what she's working on right now.
interesting.
And then she's going to be taking a look at the Vitcher anniversary glasses once they arrive here in my mailbox.
Nice. So more hardware reviews from us at Analog Stick Gaming. Make sure you check us out over there, analogstickgaming.com. And although I can't tell you what it is yet, I can tease that within the next couple of weeks, I will be reviewing a very big release for us at Analog Stick Gaming. So make sure that you're staying tuned for that as well. As I said, if you stuck with us the whole episode, thank you very much. Make sure you share it with your friends, hit the like button, hit us up in the comments. Have you played Halo Campaign Evolved yet? Are you looking forward to playing it when it drops on Game Pass? And are you going to be checking out our playthrough that's going to be releasing over the next few weeks here when we can actually get time to sit down and record it, which is hopefully tomorrow. So we will we'll work on that. Thank you for joining us as always on this 95th episode of the Gaming Mix podcast. We will see you next time, but for now, it's a goodbye from me.